Let's talk about something every lifter, from beginner to advanced, eventually faces: the dreaded plateau. You're training hard, eating right, recovering well, but suddenly your progress just stops. No matter what you do, the weights feel heavier, your muscles look the same, and motivation begins to fade. Now, the first thing to understand is that plateaus aren't failures, they're feedback. They're your body's way of saying, "Hey, I've adapted to this, and I need something new to keep improving." Muscle growth is an adaptive process. When we train, we create stress that the body interprets as a reason to get stronger and bigger. But once the body adapts to that specific stress, it stops needing to change. That's why progressive overload, increasing volume, intensity, or density over time, is essential. However, overload isn't just about lifting heavier weights every week. It's about manipulating the training variables smartly. You can increase reps, add sets, reduce rest periods, or even slow down your eccentric tempo to make the same weight harder. The reason most people hit plateaus is that they try to use the same tools indefinitely. They do the same exercises in the same rep ranges at the same effort levels. The body adapts, the stimulus becomes stale, and growth halts. The fix? Strategic variation. You don't need random change, you need planned variation. Maybe after 6 to 8 weeks of high-volume work, you reduce your training volume but increase intensity, focusing on heavier loads. This change resensitizes your muscles to growth when you later return to higher volume phases. Another crucial aspect is fatigue management. Many lifters confuse effort with progress, thinking that training to absolute failure every session means faster growth. The truth is, chronic fatigue can mask real progress. Over time, fatigue accumulates faster than recovery, leading to stagnation. To break through this, sometimes you don't need to train harder. You need to train smarter. A deload week, where you cut your training volume and intensity in half, can reset your recovery systems and bring back performance. After a proper deload, you'll often find your strength, pump, and energy levels skyrocket again. Nutrition and recovery also play massive roles. If your goal is hypertrophy, you need to be in at least a slight calorie surplus with adequate protein, around 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight daily. Sleep and stress management are equally non-negotiable. Even the best training plan can't outwork poor recovery. Lastly, let's talk about mindset. Plateaus can be frustrating, but they're also opportunities. They force you to analyze your training, question your habits, and improve your programming. When you hit a wall, don't panic. Assess. Look at your volume trends, check your recovery metrics, evaluate your diet, and then make small, targeted adjustments. The lifters who understand this science, who see training as a cycle of stimulus, adaptation, and recovery, are the ones who break through barriers again and again. So, the science of hypertrophy teaches us one key lesson. Growth isn't linear, it's cyclical. You stress the body, it adapts, and then you evolve your approach. That's how you stay on the path of progress, intelligently, patiently, and scientifically. Plateaus aren't the end of your journey. They're just the checkpoints that remind you to level up your strategy. When it comes to hypertrophy, one of the biggest reasons people stop seeing progress is because they misunderstand how adaptation really works. You see, muscle doesn't just grow endlessly from the same workout routine. The body's main job isn't to get bigger, it's to become efficient. It adapts just enough to handle whatever stress you're putting it through, and then it stops. That's what we call adaptive resistance. The longer you do the same thing, the less your body sees it as a reason to keep changing. So when you hit that frustrating plateau where the mirror looks the same, the weights feel the same, and the pump just isn't there anymore, it's not because you failed. It's because your body has become too good at handling what used to be a challenge. Now, the foundation of getting past that point starts with truly understanding progressive overload. Not just as a buzzword, but as a principle of biology. Progressive overload means increasing the stimulus that drives adaptation. Most people think that just means adding more weight to the bar every session, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. Your muscles don't care about how much the barbell weighs. They care about the tension and stress placed on the fibers. That tension can come from many different variables: more reps, more sets, slower tempo, better control, or even shorter rest periods. The real key is progression, not just in load, but in overall training stress. Let's say you've been bench pressing 100 kilograms for 10 reps, and you've been doing that for the last 6 weeks. If your reps and sets haven't changed and your effort level feels the same, your muscles are no longer getting a novel signal to grow. You can fix that by adding 1 more rep per set, or by increasing the weight by 2.5 kilograms. Or maybe you don't touch the weight at all, but you control the eccentric, the lowering phase, making it slower and more deliberate. That extra time under tension is a new signal. The point is, you have to give your muscles something they're not fully adapted to. But there's a fine line between progression and recklessness. You can't just pile on more and more work forever. That's where recovery comes in. Every bit of overload creates not just a growth stimulus, but also fatigue. If you add too much too soon, fatigue builds up faster than adaptation. And when fatigue outpaces recovery, you don't grow. You just get tired, sore, and demotivated. So intelligent overload means balancing the amount of stress you add with the recovery resources you have. More isn't always better. Better is better. Think about your training like a conversation with your body. You stress it just enough to make it respond, but not so much that it shuts down. That's why volume, the total amount of work you do, is such a powerful tool, but it needs to be managed carefully. The best lifters know their minimum effective volume, the smallest amount of work that still triggers growth. They also know their maximum recoverable volume, the most work they can do before recovery starts to fall behind. The sweet spot between these 2 points is where long-term progress happens. One of the biggest mistakes lifters make is chasing progress blindly without tracking it. If you're not logging your weights, reps, and sets, you're guessing. And guesswork is the fastest path to stagnation. You can't improve what you don't measure, so keep a training log. Look for small, consistent increases over time. If your numbers haven't moved in weeks, that's your signal. Either the stimulus needs to go up or your recovery needs to improve. Let's also talk about the psychological side of this. When progress slows, people often react emotionally. They either push too hard or back off too much. The reality is, breaking through plateaus isn't about massive changes, it's about precise, small adjustments applied consistently. Add a set, tweak your rest times, or switch to a slightly different rep range. The body thrives on small but continuous novelty. If you change everything all at once, you lose track of what's actually working. If you never change anything, you adapt and stall. The art of hypertrophy is finding the balance between consistency and change. Here's another layer people overlook: intensity of effort. You might think you're training hard, but are you really getting close to failure? The body doesn't adapt to half-hearted effort. For muscle to grow, it needs to be pushed close to its limit, at least on some sets. But again, not every set, every day. The goal isn't to crush yourself, it's to stimulate adaptation without overwhelming recovery. A few sets per session taken to within 1 or 2 reps of failure are enough to create strong growth signals without burning out your nervous system. When progress stalls, it's tempting to think something's wrong with you, but really, it's just biology doing what it's supposed to do. Adaptation is temporary unless the stimulus changes. The key is to view your training as a dynamic system that needs regular updates. Just like a computer program runs smoother after an update, your body responds better when you make planned, incremental adjustments. Breaking plateaus through progressive overload isn't about doing more for the sake of more. It's about applying the right kind of more. It's the art of giving your body just enough new challenge to force adaptation while still allowing it to recover and grow stronger. When you understand that balance, when you stop chasing arbitrary numbers and start thinking in terms of stimulus and adaptation, that's when progress becomes predictable. You stop fearing plateaus because you know how to navigate through them. They're no longer roadblocks, they're checkpoints that tell you it's time to evolve your strategy. That's the true science of hypertrophy in action. When we talk about breaking through hypertrophy plateaus, one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal is periodization and variation. Most people think muscle growth is about finding that one perfect program and sticking to it forever. But the truth is, no single routine can work indefinitely. The body is a master of adaptation, and once it figures out how to handle a given workload, the results start to fade. What you need isn't random change, it's intelligent variation, structured in a way that keeps you progressing while managing fatigue and avoiding burnout. Think about training like seasons. Each phase has its own purpose, rhythm, and focus. You don't plant seeds in the middle of winter, and you don't harvest before the crops are ready. The same logic applies to muscle growth. Periodization is the organized planning of training over time, dividing your training year or cycle into distinct phases that each build on one another. For hypertrophy, this might look like a block of higher volume, moderate intensity work to stimulate muscle growth, followed by a block of lower volume, higher intensity training to strengthen those new fibers and resensitize the body for another growth phase later on. The magic here lies in the balance between novelty and consistency. You can't grow if you're constantly changing everything. You never give your body time to adapt. But if you never change anything, you stop giving your body a reason to improve. Periodization gives you the structure to manipulate variables, volume, intensity, exercise selection, and frequency, in a way that keeps the stimulus fresh without losing direction. For example, after several weeks of high-rep hypertrophy work, your body might start showing signs of stagnation. Pumps aren't as strong, soreness is fading, and strength isn't improving. That's the perfect time to shift gears, lower the reps, increase the load, and train closer to failure for a while. You're not abandoning hypertrophy training. You're just rotating the focus to maintain responsiveness. Another critical part of this strategy is variation in exercise selection. Your muscles don't have minds of their own, but they do respond to mechanical tension from specific angles and ranges of motion. If you've been doing the same barbell curls for months, your biceps have likely adapted to that exact pattern. By switching to incline curls or concentration curls, you slightly alter the tension profile, hitting the muscle in a new way. This doesn't mean you should change exercises every session. That's chaos. But strategically rotating them every few mesocycles keeps the stimulus novel while still allowing skill development in each movement. Now, let's talk about fatigue. Every productive training phase carries a cost. Fatigue accumulates. Whether it's central nervous system fatigue, local muscular fatigue, or psychological burnout, it adds up. If you ignore it, your performance drops, motivation wanes, and growth halts. Periodization builds recovery right into the plan. After several weeks of hard training, a deload phase, a week of reduced volume and intensity, allows the body to dissipate fatigue while maintaining adaptations. It's not a setback, it's a strategic reset. In fact, most lifters are surprised at how much stronger and more energized they feel coming out of a deload. That rebound effect is the body's way of saying, "Thank you for letting me catch up." Variation also extends to rep ranges and tempos. Hypertrophy doesn't only happen in the traditional 8 to 12 rep zone. Mixing in some lower rep, high-load sets builds strength that can later help you handle heavier weights in your hypertrophy work, while higher rep, lighter load sets can improve endurance and cell swelling, both of which support growth. The principle here is not random variety, but purposeful variation. Each range and style contributes to long-term development when used at the right time. The big picture is managing adaptation. Your muscles respond best when they're challenged but not overwhelmed. Periodization lets you cycle through stress and recovery intelligently. A typical pattern might involve several weeks of building up volume, pushing close to your maximum recoverable volume, followed by a deload, then returning to training at a slightly higher baseline. Over time, your capacity for volume and intensity grows, and so does your muscle mass. Many lifters underestimate how much of this process is mental as well. Sticking to one monotonous routine for months can drain motivation. Variation keeps training exciting and mentally stimulating. When you rotate goals, spending one phase chasing pump-based hypertrophy, another focused on strength progression, you maintain enthusiasm and avoid burnout. It's not just your muscles that need variety, your mind does too. One more crucial factor is resensitization. After a long block of hard hypertrophy training, your muscles can become desensitized to that stimulus. They simply stop responding. By shifting to a phase with lower training volume or a focus on strength, you allow your body to recover and regain sensitivity to hypertrophy work. When you later reintroduce high-volume training, your body perceives it as a fresh challenge again, reigniting growth. This cyclical approach ensures that you're not spinning your wheels trying to grow when your body has temporarily shut that door. If you think about it, this is what separates smart lifters from stubborn ones. The stubborn lifter hits a plateau and just keeps doing more of the same, hoping something changes. The smart lifter understands that the body's adaptation is cyclical, not linear. They use periodization to ride those cycles: stress, adaptation, recovery, and resensitization in a way that ensures continuous long-term progress. So when you find yourself stuck, don't throw random changes at your training. Look at your structure. Ask yourself, how long have I been in this phase? Have I managed fatigue properly? Do I need variation in my exercise selection or rep ranges? Am I due for a deload? These questions are the scientific lifter's roadmap out of stagnation. Breaking through a hypertrophy plateau isn't about magic tricks. It's about understanding rhythm. You can't grow without stress, but you also can't grow without recovery. You can't make progress with chaos, but you also can't make progress with monotony. Periodization and variation give you the best of both worlds: structured change that keeps your body guessing, your performance improving, and your muscles growing. When you master that balance, you stop fearing plateaus altogether because you know how to plan your way right through them.